If you learn to be like those who are most successful, you'll find a faster route to success. And today, anyone looking to grow their web design business will find this conversation enlightening. My guest today took a huge leap of faith into entrepreneurship about 3 years ago. Never independently owned and operated any type of business before, but then along came SiteSwan, and he turned down a job opportunity and decided to go out on his own to pursue web design with SiteSwan. With a wife and 4 kids relying on his ability to succeed, the pressure was on. But he turned his business into a family business. He got his kids literally cheering him on with every sale he made, and now he's making more money than he would have ever expected to working for someone else. There's no looking back now, and he's got close to 150 clients selling multiple services to small businesses and achieved it all by just being himself. No slick sales gimmicks, no graphic design skills, just good old-fashioned, honest, hard work. So all the way from the Rocky Mountain foothills in Idaho, my guest today is Zach Hansen from Surge Web Design. Welcome, Zach.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate you doing this with me today. You've got a really interesting story to tell and some, I think, really helpful advice for people who are looking to grow their web design business. But before we get into that, can you maybe just share with me a little bit about yourself? What could you tell me about yourself?
Cool. Well, by nature, I'm a pretty introverted person. I had a little bit of tech experience before I started with SiteSwan. I'm 38 years old. Like you said before, I've got 4 kids. I'm a family man, and I don't get out a ton, especially because of COVID and everything. But yeah, nothing terribly that exciting about me. Just your average Joe, really.
Prior to getting started with SiteSwan, tell me about your career. What were you were doing? I remember you telling me that you were working at some sort of directory business of some kind. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I actually worked for a phone book company. Yeah, so basically, I had been working for a phone book company for the past 10 years before I started or so. And yeah, understandably, our phone book sales were going down each year, and we noticed that everyone their marketing budget seemed to be going towards websites. My boss asked me, he says, Zach, do you think you could put together a team to sell websites? And I was like, yeah, I guess. So back then, and this was like 6-7 years ago, but back then we were like, okay, well, I guess we need to get started with WordPress. So we got an employee that could build WordPress sites, and we very slowly created a website department out of that company where the sales reps would sell people phone book ads, and they'd also sell people websites and stuff like that. And yeah, it went okay. That's the nicest thing I can say about it is like we were able to get, like we were able to make our money back and a little bit more, but we barely made any profit off of any of these sites. And our department was always this close from being shut down, just kind of getting by as best as we could.
So now, as a print directory business, now we're talking yellow pages, right? Those types of...
Exactly.
So that's a form of advertising that was very prolific for the last, 50, 60, 80 years or so. Like phone books have been around forever. And then there was a shift about 10 or 15 years ago where businesses are now starting to pay a little bit more attention to online. So as a print-based company, you're now all of a sudden making this transition to the web, and WordPress was the platform that you all chose to do that with. So you said you had one person in charge of all the sites?
Yeah, we had a few different people, and I oversaw the department. And this actually leads me to how I found SiteSwan the first time, is we were spending up the nose for website development. It took forever, and whenever a customer needed to change, we'd say, all right, here, give us a week, and we'll make all the changes you want. And then sometimes they got back to us, and they're like, no, that's not the change. We wanted dummies, and then... So we ended up wasting all this time on websites. We'd have to charge customers a lot, and yeah, like we just didn't have any money for ourselves after everything. So I found SiteSwan, and after doing that, we let go of the WordPress developer that cost us a ton of money, and we ended up saving tons and tons of money. Like, we just had a graphic designer make our sites for us, and we already had a few graphic designers. Yeah, it ended up like websites were done way quicker. Whenever someone needed a change, we could get it done within an hour or two. And yeah, everything went really well.
That's actually where we started with SiteSwan, going back, now it's going to be 11 years, was we had a large client base of print publishers, and the print publishers, and they weren't necessarily phone books, they were like community newspaper guides. And one of the struggles they had was building up their digital revenue and recognizing also the shift. So we built the platform actually specifically for them to be able to utilize their existing graphic design staff and build affordable websites for small businesses in-house, because the idea of hiring out or bringing on someone as a developer just didn't really, it scared the living out of these publishers.
Oh, yeah.
Because the idea of bringing on a new person to do something they'd never done before, I give your company credit for taking that initiative, because that was scary business. So your company was exactly the type of company we were initially targeting when we launched the platform. So that's pretty cool. Then,
You know, and it's funny. Oh, sorry, if I can interject. Yeah. I remember seeing, when I was looking for a new alternative because we were wasting a bunch of money, I saw that cartoon with the plant that, like, eating up the money, and that really spoke to me. Like, there's this plant, there's this print advertising company, and they have this giant plant, which represents their web designer. He just eats up all the money, and then they switch to SiteSwan, and the plant makes the money instead, so... Yeah,
that was our first promotional video. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's awesome you remember that. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so the company you're working for is barely getting by, building WordPress sites. You find SiteSwan, you're like, hey guys, this might be an easier way to go about things. So you actually transition your sites from WordPress to SiteSwan?
Yeah, everyone that we could, we transitioned to SiteSwan, and so we sold all future ones in there, and things were going very well. And like, our department was growing a ton. It was the only part of the company that was growing, and yeah, things were going well till the sale.
Wow. So then what happened?
So our company was sold to a company in Kansas, and rather than try and get a job with them, I thought, this SiteSwan thing, so I've got a good thing going on here. So I contacted you guys, and I was like, yeah, what would it take to get started for my own company? So yeah, I started off part-time with SiteSwan, and then for about 8 months or so, I was part-time. And then on the 1st of January 2020, yeah, there you go. That's when I started on my own, going full-time for myself in this business.
Can you talk about what part-time looked like for you a little bit? Like, when you started doing part-time, what was that? How did you spend your time using SiteSwan? Was it nights and weekends? Was it after work?
Yeah, I would call people up during, lunch breaks, stuff like that, to find new people. Any day that I could get off, I'd go business to find people. And weekends, weeknights, I'd design sites, basically.
Now, did you ever have a side hustle before? Something like you did this on off hours or on lunch breaks before? Have you ever done anything like that?
Nothing like that.
So when you did this, though, you had in your mind, I'm going to make this full time. But I want to start by dipping my toe into it and beginning part-time, and then eventually turn it into part-time.
Exactly. And I wanted to start right out of the gate, basically, but I was on the skeleton crew to close out our old company and do the transfer. So yeah, I just did SiteSwan part-time. When things really changed was when I went full-time.
Is that feel about a very risky thing to do, or were you like convinced this is the way to go?
100% against my nature. Like, I've taken entrepreneurship tests before, and I always score in the C's or D's as far as being a good entrepreneur goes. I'm kind of nervous. I'm introverted, and I really didn't know what to expect. So anyways, But I decided that I was going to give this a my all. And I remember that first day when I started Sturge Web Design full-time, I just looked around, I sat down at my desk, and I thought, this is weird. I'm not receiving a paycheck now. If I'm successful, it's going to be 100% dependent on me. So yeah, at that point, I decided that I was going to go big or go home. So whenever I didn't have anything to do, I took an iPad out, and I just went business to business and started talking to people. Like, I'd walk in the doors and I'd just talk with the receptionist, and I'd say, oh, hi, I hope you don't mind me stopping by, but I'm a website designer with SEO experience, and I was just looking at your website, and I have a handful, and I'd start turning the iPad around. I've got a handful of ideas for ways that you guys could push your site to go higher in the Google search. A handful of changes you could make to your site. Do you have just a few minutes to talk? And like, my presentation was totally not smooth at all, but I only had to do that for about 20 hours total. In like cold calling, going door to door, just 20 hours, and then I never had to again. Because after that, I started getting referrals and just, mostly just referrals, a handful of ads I did, and my website ranking got me pretty much all the business I ever needed.
Let me just stop you there for a second. 20 hours of cold calling. I can't tell you how many times people reach out to us and say, I don't want to cold call. I'm not good at cold calling. I've never sold anything before. And we assure them that you don't need to come to us with that experience, but you really came with zero of that and 20 hours. Anyone could work a job for 20 hours. I don't care how much you hate it.
The thing that surprised me most of all was that it really wasn't that bad. Off of those 20 hours, I think I sold about 5 companies, and we sold the sites. I think the average site we sold for about 800 or 1,000, and the average amount we got was about 100, maybe even 150 a month off of it. And granted, we do more services than the typical SiteSwan client, but like we focus a little bit more on SEO. But man, if you break that down, it was like I was making like 200, 300 an hour off of going door to door. So yeah, that's with no sales experience at all. But yeah.
There's not a lot of jobs I wouldn't do for $200 an hour.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I'm glad I don't have to cold call anymore. But yeah, But I'd say the biggest thing during that time, I was super nervous, so I watched a bunch of sales videos, and I watched this YouTube video, just a little YouTube video. But anyways, I'd listen to these pep talks and all that, and one of the things he said was to be a good salesman, woman, like sales rep, he says, drop the smooth sales guy pitch. Everyone's heard that 1,000 times, and people have evolved to not really care for it. So he said, just be authentic. And whenever I'd walk into someone's place, I made an effort to just see if we'd be a good fit. And I'd be honest with people when I said, look, I'm not sure if we'll be a great fit, but maybe we can just talk and just see if I can help you. And if I can't, the worst case scenario is that you'll get a half an hour of decent advice from me. And yeah, and I think that really affected people really well. I had some clients where it seemed more like they were trying to sell me that they needed my services rather than, and I was just like, I don't know, your site right now is pretty good. I've run into that lots of times, and the more you play hard to get, the easier the sale is.
Yeah, look, in a sales conversation, someone has to be the salesperson, and if you're not it, oftentimes it will be the person buying. Now, how did you decide who you were going to approach in those first 20 hours of cold calling? How'd you make that list?
I just went door to door pretty much. I knew from my experience at the phone book which customers I could help out the most. Stuff like dentists, plumbers never have locations, but plumbers, restaurants. One of my biggest ones that I ran into was a loan company, which was really a big thing, places like that.
And what would you say about those industries that makes them good candidates for your services?
Yes, and if I could narrow that down a little bit,
Sure.
It's companies that serve the local areas. And in my case, that made it really easy because it was just straightforward, like you'd say, plumber in Boise, Idaho. And with that, it helped us push them to the top of the Google search. Also, lots of times with these businesses, you deal directly with the owner because it's small businesses. And yeah, so it's not too hard to get to the decision maker and all that.
Did you utilize the local prospecting tool that we have to generate that first list of potential clients?
I actually did in my case. We may have gotten one or two off of it. For me, I think I got the most out of just going door to door. I also, I did a handful of other things as well, like joining the Chamber of Commerce was really good, especially right at the beginning before COVID hit. What else? I had a Craigslist ad. It just cost $5, and I just signed up on a whim, and that got me quite a bit of money. So
you'll just post in the appropriate category on Craigslist once a week or once, how often?
I used to do it once a month, but now I do it every week because it's just $5 each, and the return on investment is great. And the thing that I found was that when I posted on Craigslist, I saw that all the competitors had one of two things in common. They were almost all from out of state, and they were almost all didn't have any pictures. They said nothing about themselves. So I looked at that and I thought, I'm going to do the opposite of what these guys do. And when they do have pictures, they all looked all presentable and in suits and everything. I just decided to do the opposite. So I took the scraggliest picture of myself. I still use it in my email picture. I let my beard grow out a bit, and I took a selfie with a cell phone. I once told that to a photographer, and he about died of shock. He's like, how could you? But I took that picture, and then I just wrote up a quick paragraph about myself, and it really took off. When I set it up, I wasn't expecting a single call off of it, honestly. I thought, we'll see what happens. But I got a really good call after just a week, and I almost died laughing. I was like, man, can't believe that worked. But it's a great way to advertise, especially for a small business.
So now, tell me what happens when you get these first few sales. A little bit of excitement, a little bit of joy, a little bit of hope, a little bit of worry. What was going through your head there, and how did you chronicle or celebrate those wins?
It was a great feeling, honestly. Like, each of these sales is like, for every client, there's $1,000 up front that we'd get. Like, we'd also get 100 each month. Granted, we still had to put lots of work into that, but man, that's a lot of residual income right there, and just off of a little bit of sales work. Like you said before, I have 4 kids, and it was very important for me to make sure that the kids don't always associate dad with working in his office and grouchy and never coming out. So I brought my kids in on this with me, and we made a sales thermometer. Have I showed that to you before, Justin?
You have it handy?
I do. Yeah, here, let me just move this camera over. All right, you can see that. So each one of those rungs was a website that we sold. And I had the kids decorate it, and I had them fill it out. As you can see, we've built onto it several times because we kept on selling more and more than originally expected. But it made things fun. I told the kids, every 10 we sell, I'll take you out for ice cream. And it made them really all on board. And every day I'd come home and my kids would say, Dad, did you sell any websites today? Did you sell any websites today? And it just made things lots of fun. And it's just turning this all into a game, I think, was really good.
Yeah, and look, when you have the support of your loved ones, that can go a really long way to motivating you and also making you feel good about your decision. So I think that was a really good move. You said you had a designer. Is this a designer that you knew from your previous position, or did you hire them off of Craigslist or something? How'd you come across that designer?
She was working for that phone book company that I worked for too, and she got laid off. So it's been really good, and she's a great graphic designer. And the thing is with SiteSwan, man, to to take care of all the websites. If we stayed with WordPress, it would be a full-time position. It keeps her busy about a fourth of the time, if that, of the regular WordPress designer.
That's the thing what a lot of people don't realize is that you can totally, especially if you're working off of our themes, you can totally build these sites 100% yourself. You don't need a graphic designer. But if you want to relieve yourself of having to do that so that you can focus on growing the business and growing sales, then by all means, bring on a designer that can work remotely from wherever they want, from wherever they are. They don't have to be local to you. You can hire them, and they're affordable, right? A graphic designer is a very good profession to be in, but it doesn't cost a lot to bring one on to hire remotely. They can work from home, and then they can be in charge of assembling your sites for you, or even if you have to do a little custom work here and there, you have access to them. So that's a strategy I think a lot of the people who grow the fastest will implement, because then they could just keep their eye focused on the next sale and not have to worry about fulfillment. Not that you don't play a role in fulfillment, but the less you have to do with fulfillment, the more you can focus on bringing in the revenue. So I think that's a really good move.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my case, I can make a lot more money selling than I can making websites. And I've made a handful, and I think they've turned out pretty well. And but yeah, especially with the templates that
you hear this. I just want to make that clear. Almost 150 sites that you've sold and you're managing. Yeah, I've built a few. That's what he says.
Oh yeah,
that's great.
Myself.
That's great. Yeah. That's like delegation. Have the people who do something really well do it. And a lot of people also hire the salespeople to go out and do the cold calling like you did. Sure, you can go out and do the cold calling, demonstrate its success and all that stuff, and then you can hire a cold caller to go out there and duplicate your services, duplicate your efforts, so that you can have multiple pairs of feet on the ground driving in new business. Correct me if I'm wrong then, when you started out, you weren't relying too heavily on our themes. You were actually just going after whoever was interested in getting a website with you, because you were able to lean on a designer a little bit to help you custom create some sites. And when I say custom create, I'm talking about just swapping out elements to make a site feel more like it's appropriate for a specific industry, not diving into code or anything like that.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, like, she's got a more artistic eye than I do. Like, there's no reason I couldn't make these sites myself. I just think I can spend my time doing better things.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but it's really worked out well. And, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, I never followed the traditional model with SiteSwan, but I'm starting to do it a little bit more these days, because I'm like, have I been overlooking all this stuff or all these great templates? And so, yeah, it is a thing that I might not be the best person to ask how to get started. But, yeah, I'm finding a lot of cool features and stuff.
Yeah, not the best person to get started, says the person who spent only 20 hours visiting clients, closed 5 deals, made $200 an hour, and then turned it all into referrals. And, yeah, I think you're a pretty good person to ask about getting started. So now that you hung up your walking shoes because you're no longer going door to door, you're relying on the ads that you run on Craigslist. You're relying on referrals that you get from your clients. You rely on the networking that you do through the Chamber of Commerce. And you found success there, because I think what you tell me if you agree with this, when it comes to referrals, if small business owners like what you do for them, all they want to do is tell their friends, their other business owner friends, about you. It's an interesting relationship that small business owners have in a particular community. If they like a vendor that they have, they will share it. They'll go out of their way to share it with their friends. Would you agree with that?
100%. Now this is going to sound really weird, but it's like when you create a small business, you want to create a cult. You want to create a cult following, basically. And it's a much, much cheaper way to advertise than doing Google ads or paying to be in the newspaper or stuff like that. But if you spend just a few extra hours here and there to help a client out, and you let them know that you help them out, and just say, hey, I hope you don't mind, but I upgraded you. I created an extra page for you because I thought it would help boost you out. And I know that, of course, they won't mind, but it's just my little way of saying, hey, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. And yeah, no, people really appreciate that. And I've got a handful of customers that that just, not every customer, of course, but I've got a handful that just spread the message and have given me so many people. Like, I've got one of the first ones I set up, I met through the Chamber of Commerce, but he and his brother got me probably about 7 new clients. And another one that I met through the Chamber, he got me 8 new clients too. So it makes a really big difference. And that's your bread and butter. If you want the long-term money, you have to just show people that you're really interested. Always answer your phone. And when you can't answer your phone, there's like a little text notification. On an Android, you can say, there's a thing that you can choose where it says, automatically say, hey, sorry, I can't reach the phone right now. I'll call you back shortly. And then I'll call them back as soon as I can afterwards. And yeah, people just love it when you do that.
Yeah, being responsive goes a really long way when it comes to servicing small business owners, without a doubt. And don't you also find it so much easier to close a deal from a referral?
Oh, absolutely. It's a piece of cake. Yeah, much, much easier than cold calling.
You have to really screw something up to not close a referral deal on a website.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it takes me about, I'd say the average is like an hour and 20 minutes, like total time, most of the time to close a referral. Well, when you cold call someone or cold email them, it can take quite a bit longer.
And when you say to close, can you define what you mean by that when you say it takes an hour and 20 minutes? Or
to get them to get their credit card information, to sign them up, and to have them sign an agreement.
Got it.
I know a lot of you guys don't do agreements, but yeah, I do in my case. So.
You mentioned that the very first customer that you took on, you're an unknown entity, an unknown business amongst these folks. You say Surge Web Design, they're like, huh? They don't recognize you, they don't recognize your name, but you're still going out and closing $1,000 websites. There's a lot to be said about that. The confidence level that you have, fake it till you make it, and the sincerity, right? Because if you go in there with a super polished sales thing, people might be a little bit hesitant to be investing. But when you have the hat-in-hand approach and you're just trying to help them, being able to collect a larger upfront fee becomes a lot simpler. But you also mentioned that you charge a higher monthly fee because you offer additional services. Can you tell us a little bit about what those services are and how you are able to offer them and things like that?
Yeah, so basically, with our base package, the biggest thing that we offer is our own content. And we'll do research on Google to find out what keywords people type in, and then we'll write the website around that content. We'll just write content and spend only about $30 a page on the content. But that investment of the $30 a page ends up significantly boosting sites in the search results. And then for the extra monthly fee, we'll do little things like link build for them. We'll check on Google Search Console to change keywords around for them. And yeah, I know that sounds all intimidating. It's actually very, I'm 100% self-taught. And most of it is just from watching YouTube videos, but it requires very little technical knowledge. But yeah, just some practice.
So just to be clear, when you're fetching a higher monthly fee, is most of it based on additional upfront work you're doing or additional ongoing work that you're doing?
A lot of it's based on the upfront monthly. If you write a site really well, then it will take you a lot less monthly work than a ton of link building. And that's a big mistake that tons of people make when they sign up with SEO companies, is they'll pay like $400 a month and not invest at all in their website. They'll just have terrible websites. And of course, a site that's really cruddy can't get to the top of Google. It doesn't matter how many links you have pointing to it. But yeah, and that's just one of the things. Like I said, our average client spends about $100 a month. But we've got clients that spend in the 2000s range just because they want lots of link building, lots of blogs, social media stuff.
And so, these are all things that stem to and from or around a core website service. And when you talk about content creation, you're not necessarily doing the Google searches yourself and sitting down in front of Microsoft Word and typing the stuff all up. Instead, you've, I assume, got some people who help you.
Exactly. We found writers, and which are pretty dang cheap, actually. In our community, there's lots of stay-at-home moms, typically, that want to make some extra income for their families, but want a job that's incredibly flexible. And, man, writing a website's the perfect job for them. Highly educated, but want to work their own hours. It's just a perfect fit, and it's not too expensive for us.
That's another example of delegating work, right? When you can say, all right, here's a thing I can get someone else who's proficient at to do this. I can, again, focus my energy on making more deals, making more sales, bringing in more revenue. And then it's just a cycle you can repeat over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also a tool like Vendasta. And with Vendasta, you can buy a bunch of things that really go well with websites, like social media stuff and SEO stuff and Google My Business stuff. Like basically anything related to marketing you can get through Vendasta and have someone else do it for you.
Yeah, and if you spend a little bit of time just learning about what works, you do your own research just like you have. And it's a great idea to pay attention to what your clients are wanting and offer them something, because when you sell someone a beautiful website that they really like, they'll want to buy more from you. We call it the honeymoon period, where the first 30 to 90 days after you sell them a website, if you don't sell them the full package when you initially sign them up, it's the greatest time to be able to upsell them on additional services, because they're like, yeah, what else can you do for me? You sold me an awesome site at a great price. I like it. It was easy to work with you. You're a nice person. You did a little more for me. Yeah, what else can you do for me? And it's a very effective way to build up that recurring revenue, which you obviously figured out. So I want to go over a couple things that I think you might be able to help me drive home, because whenever I do a session like this, I always like to focus on some tips for success so that people who are watching can walk away with something that they can implement into their own business, whether it's web design or not. And maybe you can add to them a little bit with your personal experience. The first thing that comes to mind is, and you could definitely attest to this, is even if it goes against your personality traits, don't be shy. Even if prospecting isn't for you, do it anyway, because it probably won't have to be long term. Am I right?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, definitely in my case. And honest, I think I had to that prospecting thing to begin with. I think it was just kind of stepping over the line. It taught me how to sell. It taught me how to talk to people and everything. And once, it's like stepping into a hot tub. It only hurts for like a second. Then you get used to it, and you become comfortable with it.
Exactly. And no one ever regrets going out and doing cold calls, because at the very least, you'll walk away with experience that you would not be able to get any other way. I've done it myself too. I didn't necessarily, was my favorite thing to do, but I definitely did not regret it. And it's an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah. One quote that really helped me out was Wayne Gretzky's, you miss 100% of shots that you don't take.
Bingo.
And it's totally true. If someone's mean to you, or if a call doesn't work out, then what did you lose? You didn't lose anything. All you have to do is gain off of these. Yeah, losing an hour of your time, well, sure, I probably would have wasted it anyways. That's the worst case scenario with
right.
these things.
Right.
But yeah, sorry about that.
The next thing that I think is a good takeaway is, I referred to it earlier, I call it the hat in your hand approach. Don't be a typical salesperson. Being yourself, being honest, letting people see the real you could be a great way to stand out from others who are maybe trying to peddle a similar service.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because when I was beginning, I told people up front, like, oh yeah, I told people that I had a few years of experience with web design, but I told them that I am just starting out. And some people told me, they said, Zach, don't say that. They're going to think that you're going to collapse after a few days. And I kept on doing it, and it really helped me out. One thing especially with it is that I changed it. I'd say, look, I'm just starting out. Between you and me, I really don't like cold calling. It's incredibly awkward with me, and I want to get referrals someday. So basically, so I tell clients, if you sign on with me, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you have a good experience and that you give me referrals, because I just don't want to do this forever. And yeah, I turned something that was bad into a huge benefit. So
yeah, sometimes if you just don't try to ignore the thing that's making you uncomfortable and just address it and be vulnerable, and you'd be really surprised what comes of that. You really would be, because you're just talking to other people. That's what you're doing. There are other people who happen to own a business. There's nothing special about them other than they own a business. You're just talking to other people.
yeah.
Another tip that I think would be helpful to people is the idea of getting leads to come to you. You mentioned the referrals, but have you ever asked for a referral? How does that work?
I don't ask a lot. I'll just bring it up in casual conversations sometimes. I really could do more. Typically, it's just a throwaway line in my case. But yeah, it's something I really could use a lot more.
Yeah. It's sometimes subtlety is the right way to ask for a referral. You might be much more effective asking for it in a subtle way than being in your face about it. Another tip that I think might apply to what you've done, and I want your opinion on this. I advise people who are getting involved in web design to strive to improve quality. And if you improve quality of the finished product, you'll be able to go upmarket with your prices. Would you agree with that?
100%. Like I probably spend an extra few $100 on each website than probably the typical SiteSwan client, and as a result, I'm able to charge way more just because of the higher quality. But yeah, definitely agree.
If you have a decent size upfront fee, you can afford to be able to even break even on the setup fee. If you think about it, right? Let's say you have a salesperson too, and you want to give them a percentage of the sale, and then you have these production costs, and they're getting a percentage of the sale. That's okay, because you have a monthly fee. That's the name of this is a recurring revenue business. So the upfront fees are really designed to make sure you don't lose money on the deal. And then the ongoing monthly fees are there for the profit margins. So that's something that I think is helpful to be able to wrap your head around.
Absolutely. Subscription. And even if I lose money on an upfront fee, if a customer wants a little bit more, a lot of times they'll just say, what the heck? Because getting that, like over time, like the first few clients, for instance, we probably lost a ton of money off of, because like one was a dermatologist and we way undercharged. So Nat and I, my wife, Natalie, and I probably made like $5 an hour off of it. So, but over time, we got that $100 a month, and we got more and more. And then they upgraded several times and referred several friends to us. And like, I'm glad that I wasn't cheap towards the beginning, because believe me, don't underestimate how much your brand is worth. If you can build your brand name so that people have a warm, fuzzy feeling towards you, that is incredibly important. And if you're always trying to err on being too generous to the clients, because believe me, they will appreciate it as time goes on.
I love it. That's a great tip. I have a couple others that I want to go over, and I know this one probably doesn't resonate with you as much as you stated earlier, but I always recommend people who are just getting started to work off of our themes for your site designs when you're just getting going. If the majority of your budget is going toward your SiteSwan membership, you may be a little bit hesitant to start hiring other people as well. But utilizing the themes is a great way to be able to get started, because you can build and close deals quickly without having to get involved with doing the custom stuff. But once you get into a groove, utilizing your approach where you are doing a little bit more custom stuff, you don't feel limited by the industries that we have themes for. You'll just go after anybody, because you have a designer who you can rely on, and that works great. But the idea of building out with themes is something you said that you are starting to focus a little bit more attention on to increase margins a little bit.
Yeah, like I've reached a lot of clients that just need a nice website up quickly. I'll quote them significantly lower price than normal. And honestly, I got a site up with a theme within an hour, basically, for a handyman. So, man, that's really good money if you look at it that way.
For that client, did you utilize the concept of a free homepage design demo that you showed him prior to him giving you money? Or you had already sold him and then you just used the theme to build the site for him?
I already sold him, so he just needed something up quickly. Yeah, I just did that.
Nice.
So yeah, it's something I want to look at a lot more for certain clients.
Cool. And then the last thing, which we talked a little bit about before as well, is utilizing other people's skill sets, knowing what you're good at, knowing what they're good at, and building a sort of a team or a network of independent contractors. Zach, are any of the people you work with actual employees, or are most of them independent contractors when it comes to your content creators and designers and stuff like that?
They're all independent contractors. I'm hoping to get our first employee this year to relieve some of the stuff off of me, but the independent contractor model's worked out really well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, how many, I know you're inching up to 150 sites. How many sites do you think are in your quote-unquote funnel at the moment, at any given time?
I don't know. Depends where in the funnel they are. So
anywhere.
I'd say at any time I've got 5 hot ones and maybe about 10 other warm ones. And that's a deal. I could sell a lot more of these if I just had time. I really need to hire more people because like towards the beginning I would stay on people, I'd send follow-up emails. Now, if someone sends me an email, I'll send them one follow-up email, and I just don't really follow up as much as I should. But don't do that.
So you're saying there's no shortage of demand?
Oh, yeah, not at all. So during December there is, definitely, which is nice because it will let me take a break for Christmas and all that. So if you start your business in December and it's slow, don't worry. It picks up a ton mid-January. So yeah.
So 3 years in, would you say that you're about where you thought you'd be, or a lot bigger or smaller? How would you say you are?
A lot of people say, oh yeah, I never doubted myself for a second there. But no, I in the back of my mind, I thought, Zach, this isn't going to work. This is going to end up like all the other stuff. But now, expectations have wildly been exceeded. And maybe thinking of having 150 sites at this point wasn't out of the realm of possibility, but I had no idea that I'd be charging, $2,000 a month for a site and for an advertising program and stuff like that. So yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's amazing when you've got that website relationship. Not only does it open the opportunity for other things, but business owners will tell you stuff that you would never be able to learn from them if you were providing any other service. I know small business owners have told me exactly how much every single vendor is charging them for every single thing. I knew food costs for restaurants. I knew how much the supplies were that the landscaper was using for the trees that he would plant for people. He'd tell you how much he was paying for them. Like, they tell you everything as their web designer, almost like a business consultant. And
that's true.
Right? And then with that information, not saying you should take advantage of that information, but you can help them with that information, because when they're being honest with you, you can be honest with them about what can actually help them.
And that's the thing I tell everyone. I say, I talk to lots of people. I know what advertising works and what advertising doesn't. And yeah, I consider myself friends with lots of the people. But another interesting thing is that, when you sign someone up for a website, lots of people will want to turn over all their advertising to you. They'll say, oh yeah, this SEO company's charging me $600 a month to do this. Would you mind taking a look? And yeah. And the first time I looked at that, I was like, okay, I'll take a look. And when I looked at it, I thought, maybe I could do something like this. And so now I make the I don't think I charge them $600 a month. I think $400 a month, maybe $500, something like that. But man, it's once you start getting in with people, they'll want you to do a whole lot more for them, basically, if you do a good job.
Yeah. Any goals that you can share? Obviously, knowing where you are now, do you have any goals for this year, for wrapping up 2022? I know we're just getting started, but there's plenty of time to set and meet some goals, right?
Yeah, I want to sell about maybe 80 sites this year. I'm at, what am I at? I think I'm at 15 so far, so a little bit on track, but I do need to take care of my current customers, because that is one thing. Is once you get bigger, you need to find ways to take care of your existing clients a little bit better, because believe me, you start juggling more and more irons. I am looking towards stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Zach, I don't want to keep you longer than you need to be here, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being able to expose to me and everyone who watches some of the best techniques and tricks for being able to excel and succeed as someone who's offering web design services and related services. I give you a lot of credit for being able to achieve the success that you have and figuring out so many things on your own. And, you know, we didn't tell you to go out and hire a designer, but you took it upon yourself to do that. And those types of things, delegating, I'm sure has played a role in your ability to cruise along at the pace that you have over a relatively short period of time. So I just want to say thank you again for doing this, because people who are getting into the world of web design might have some hesitations, and being able to hear from someone who has never done web design before, has never owned a business outright before, I think can give people confidence that they too can do it. So I really appreciate you being a part of helping others find their freedom.
Oh, thank you, Justin. And believe me, like I said before, I did this interview because I figure I kind of owe you guys, because I don't think I could have done this with another platform. Definitely not WordPress, and it's disgusting like how little I pay for each of these websites. Just once I hit 100, that is so reasonable. But don't raise prices on me.
You got it.
But yeah, it's been a great experience. And also a thing that's been really helpful is the tech support I got from you guys. I had this domain stuff, like setting up domains. I didn't really know how, but the guys at SiteSwan held my hand throughout all of it, which really made things much easier for me. So
awesome. I'm glad to hear that. After all, there's nothing we'd rather do in terms of helping our clients more than helping you launch a site. Because in the end of the day...
Oh, I know. Yeah, there's reasons, I know.
Yeah, look, we're not successful unless you're successful. You're not successful unless you're selling and launching sites. So we'll do everything we can to possibly help, because that's what we want to help you achieve. Well, Zach, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Best of luck for the rest of this year and coming years, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Zach.